Alright guys, this is Solomon's Diary. We are live in the UK. I have here my very good friend, Dan Warren.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you again, my friend, my brother. The first time I met you was in Nigeria, RITV Nigeria, yeah.
Over 2 years ago.
Yeah, over 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. And I must tell you that it's really, really amazing meeting you because you are a superhuman. Really.
Thank you. I don't feel like...
I've learned a lot from you, really. I've learned a lot. So, guys, this is Solomon's Diary. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, kindly do so. Click on the subscribe button right now because we've got lots of beautiful stuff for you, and you know that. And I want to say thank you to everyone who have been following us, and I want to thank those also who have been giving us advices and telling us what to do. So, we are in the season of election in the UK.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Beautiful, and that's what we'll be discussing today because lots of people have told me that, I've experienced lots of, elections in Nigeria, and this is the first time I'll be witnessing one in the UK. So it is important for us to talk about it. And you being a British, I think you are the best person I can talk to. All right.
No problem.
A lot of people know that, of course, you've been following me on Facebook.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know that I'm a strong supporter of Nigeria.
Yes, very much.
But when it comes to telling ourselves the truth, we will definitely tell ourselves the truth. You've been to Nigeria several times. Mm-hmm. You've covered elections. You've been an analyst on Arise TV, talking about politics and so many things. And you know that, one thing that is peculiar to Nigeria's election is violence.
Yes, it seems like it's a tradition that at least a few ballot boxes need to be set on fire at some point, which is obviously not very democratic, but it does seem, and I've seen sort of two elections in Nigeria now, and there's always ballot boxes on fire or violence, which is, obviously you're voting for change, you're voting for that doesn't happen, but it seems to always happen. But I've got a feeling maybe a bit later tonight that could start happening here. We'll see.
I don't think it can happen because when I went out this morning, and especially when I was coming to your office, I think the only major difference is that there were lots of people at the train station, and lots of people are saying, it's the election time and all that, Now, I'll be asking you so many questions about the build-up to elections and all that, in Nigeria, we have INEC, conducting the elections. Mm-hmm. What are people conducting elections in the UK?
The Electoral Commission, they oversee it, but sometimes you would think the Electoral Commission was also the BBC, the way they kind of like to take over the elections. But pretty much they're the independent body, but in each region it's the local councils that have to oversee to make sure there's someone with security clearance to count to oversee the ballot counting. It's a system that's normally quite well put into place, but because of the time of year, because we haven't had an election in December since the 1920s.
Wow.
It's like, for example, a lot of places where you go to vote are normally in schools, but because the schools are having nativity plays or Christmas concerts, they've had to put the polling stations in strange places, like a laundrette has been turned into a place where you go to vote. There's a castle somewhere in the UK that's been turned into a place to vote.
The same thing in Nigeria as well, where you have schools where people go to vote and all that, and people's houses in front of their houses and all that. There is so much poverty in Nigeria. We won't shy away from the truth, and I keep telling people that most of our leaders have actually they created the poverty on purpose so that they can control and clone the people's minds. Once they know that people are poor during election period when people are campaigning, they give out rice, they give out stipends to people, and someone that has not eaten, once you offer the person money, the person want to vote for you.
You're buying votes.
You're buying votes, you're buying the people. But here, the reverse is the case. I've seen lots of clips, I've edited lots of clips where Boris Johnson will just knock on people's doors, just talk to them, they're happy and all that,
I gotta admit, I was actually having a conversation yesterday because, yesterday he started the day and he was delivering milk to people at their house, and then he was icing some donuts and things, and you're thinking, does that really make people want to vote for him? I mean, we've kind of moved
I saw
on
that
from,
too.
you know, you're thinking, what? The man can ice a donut. I'll vote for him. I don't quite understand it, but it's interesting you say about buying votes, because at the moment I think this has probably been the biggest election in my lifetime where normally people say, oh, there's no point voting because they're all the same. Whereas this year there's actually a very stark contrast between the two. And I can understand the pros for both sides, but the problem is one side is literally promising everything. Which is almost like the equivalent of the rice. They're promising free education for students, promising all these things. But basically the only way that can be paid is either borrowing lots of money, which means someone eventually's got to pay it off, or people will end up having to pay more taxes. And this is where this aggression is. The youth, obviously, they don't want to pay for their university education. So that is why we're being told today that the turnout is probably one of the highest turnouts we have seen for any election in recent memory.
Wow. So what time is the voting?
Basically, it started from 7 o'clock this morning. It finishes at 10 tonight. Bang on 10 o'clock tonight. The three main news networks, that's the BBC, Sky and ITV, they combine forces and they do an exit poll, which is normally about 95% accurate. Once that exit poll is broadcast bang on 10 o'clock, it then gives an indication if Boris Johnson is going to get a majority or if it's going to be a hung parliament. And at that point, the pound will either grow against the dollar, or people will start taking money out of cash machines and doing a run on the pound. I mean, there's obviously a lot of scaremongering, but I think the fact is everything that could happen tonight is unknown. Because it's all about Brexit.
Yeah, it's all about Brexit.
And the fact is, like, for example, there's lots of places here in the southeast where we would call them leafy, well-to-do places, a bit like here in Chiswick. So it's and they may normally vote Conservative, but if they voted, they're a strong Remain in the EU area, the chances are they won't vote Conservative this year. So we're going to see lots of constituencies changing hands to different parties, and I think even this exit poll won't be half as accurate as normal because there's just going to be so many abnormalities. Yeah,
that's really amazing. Before we started recording, you know, we're talking behind the scene, and we're talking about what the ordinary people on the streets will feel. You know, there are lots of people, so many analysts that will come on TV, national TV, they talk about their opinions, and they think their opinion overrides that of the people, normal people on the street. So now, during the election, I know lots of people are rooting for Corbyn, lots of people are also rooting for Boris Johnson. So what would an average British person think about this election?
I think that they would feel that they've actually got a choice, because before when it was, for example, Theresa May, or even in fairness, the last election 2017, Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn, there was a choice, but it wasn't a good choice. I've got to admit, it's probably the same this time around, but like before then it was David Cameron, Ed Miliband. They're pretty much the same. The two parties were just a little bit different, whereas now they're so far apart. So people probably think, great, we've got a choice. But the problem is there's so much angst, and that is driven by social media. And Mark Zuckerberg, you know, he wants to leave a legacy, and one of his legacies was how he has absolutely screwed up society, because basically people can't even have a discussion and disagree on, you know, suddenly it's hate messages to, you know, using expletives, and there's just no need for it. At the end of the day, we all have to live in this same country. And the fact is, it doesn't matter who wins in the morning. You know, the country is going to be divided, and I just hope there's a lot of people that just think, okay, my guy didn't win, but we should accept the result. Let's get on with it. But I do think that there will be a bit of unrest in some. I can see on both sides.
Unrest in what sense?
I can just see bits of vandalism. I mean, like back in 2010, there was a bit of unrest where people started setting fire to shops in Croydon, and there was suddenly became these riots.
It was crazy.
And I can see something similar happening, because essentially, if one party wins tonight, Brexit will happen in a month's time. If another party wins, there'll be a second referendum. The choice between the two is not like whether they stay or go. The leaving is almost as equivalent of staying, but in a different name almost. It's almost no choice. and people will feel that they've lost Brexit. So I can see the Brexiteers getting quite angry.
That's crazy. You know, one thing that is worrisome for me is the fact that I think this message is for the youths out there, that there is no reason for us to kill ourselves because of elections.
Yeah.
You know, unlike here where everything is peaceful, back in Nigeria, you would have seen in the news, on television, on social media, that lots of people have been, killed because of elections. Now, I need to pass this message to our Nigerian youth that, look, the gap between you and the politician is this. Most of you would collect stipends. You'll be given guns and cutlasses to go kill people, to go disrupt voting units. When you are killed, the politician and his family, they enjoy themselves. I see a lot of their children here in big hotels, driving, big cars, Dan. So why do you have to kill yourself? Okay, now, Dan.
Yeah.
Do you want the UK, United Kingdom, to still be a part of the European Union?
Yes and no. As I was saying to you before we recorded this, I think the world has changed so much, and I think that the UK needs its safety in numbers. It's better to have a union, but I can understand people that wanted to leave because Brussels, which controls the EU, brings in these rules. The people that make the rules are unelected. So, I mean, the fact is the EU used to be just a trading bloc, where it was like, we're all neighbours, let's trade with each other and let's help each other out if there's for security and terrorism. And it's gone from that to quite extreme. So I can understand why people want to leave, but I think there needs to be, but I do think we should leave because there was a vote and the vote said to leave. I think if the vote is ignored, then that really doesn't say much about democracy, and people will start to feel, well, my vote doesn't count. And then, for example, if it's the non-Brexit people that win tonight, Brexiteers probably won't vote in future elections, which means if you want to change things back, you're never going to, because you need to get to the ballot box. And I think people, there is a thing in this country that if it doesn't go their way, they'll sort of cut their nose to spite their face and go, right, that's it, I'm not going to vote again. And it's like, for example, what I admire about the United States is a lot of people didn't vote for Trump, they voted for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
But when Trump won, they kind of, not happy about it, but they suddenly joined the Democrat Party, they got involved politically, they started doing fundraisers to generate revenue for the party, and they go out and actively campaign, and that's the best thing because they know they've got 4 years and they'll have a crack at getting rid of him next year. But rather than violence, rather than start slagging each other off, they just think, okay, this has happened, because they seem to be the Americans, I don't know what they're so patriotic over their democracy, and like, for example, the UK is supposed to be one of the oldest and grandest democracies, but it seems to be getting trashed because, as I said, basically the reason why we're having an election is the people voted. The people voted a different way to what Parliament wanted, and Parliament couldn't move on to a gridlock, and the chances are it's 50-50. We could end up still in gridlock tomorrow morning.
Okay, wow. Yeah, this is Solomon's Diary. We'll go on a short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. This is Solomon's Diary. All right, live in the UK, and I'm still with Dan Warren.
Indeed, I haven't gone anywhere.
We are still together. Now, let us look at the pros and cons of Brexit.
Okay.
Let us look at what UK tends to gain if UK is still a part of Europe. Then let us see the disadvantage if UK is out of Brexit.
It's a good question, and the fact is that the pros to stay is life will be like it is now, and at the end of the day, you're a visitor to this country, and I know that you love coming here because a lot of things are stable, and the thing is, doesn't matter there's all these projections about leaving, but nobody knows because nobody's done it. It's almost like if somebody passes away, nobody knows what happens, whether there is an afterlife or that's it, because nobody can come back and tell. It's almost like once you've jumped ship and left the EU, you can't suddenly go a day later, we'll come back in. You've gone and you've gone for good.
You've gone, and
because, like, for example, world financial markets are based on certainty and uncertainty, it's obvious why the pound takes a nosedive. every time there's talk of Brexit, because nobody knows, and it could be a really good thing, it could be a bad thing, but nobody knows. And there are a lot of countries. This is another thing that the sort of, especially the British press, because it's quite clear, like BBC and Sky, they didn't want anyone to leave the EU. Okay. But there are a lot of countries like Italy, the Netherlands, France. They are getting fed up and they want to leave the EU, and the EU know that, so they were never going to make it easy for the UK to leave. And what really frustrates me is you see all these political programmes on TV where people are saying, oh, well, they should have done the negotiation before and then we go to a referendum. Well, the EU were never going to spend all this time negotiating for something that may or may not happen. The fact is we voted to leave, so they had no choice but to negotiate. Until you're in that situation, they would never have sat down. And the thing is, if they made it easy, there would be other countries that definitely would.
You know, well, we were talking about what this means for ordinary British people, and I remember talking to someone, you know, a top journalist, John Cookson.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and he was telling me that. And John was telling me that, look, he prefers UK to leave European Union. I asked him why. He said, look, lots of people come to the UK, Swedish people, lots of people, and you know, they've taken over many our jobs here in the UK. And he said, if he wants to do something, like for instance, he wants to renovate his toilet, for instance, the amount of money a British will charge is quite different from the way a Swedish, someone from Turkey will charge you, which is really, really less. And at the end of the day, you get a Turkey standard kind of repairs in his house, which is really killing him, that he wants to break away. You know, he doesn't mind spending so much money hiring British to work with him. Do you share the same sentiment?
Well, yes and no. In terms of, I can.
Your answer has been yes and no.
Yeah, I
love that you're just in between.
No, the thing is, I always think that with everything there is a pro and con. There is not ever a situation where it's a no-brainer. Everything is positive. There's always two things, and there is a lot of jobs being taken. But having said that, it's because a lot of British people won't do them. Like, for example, working on farms and like, picking vegetables to send to the supermarkets. The Brits won't do that. You know, I don't know why, but that is why there is lots of people from the EU, probably from the Eastern Bloc countries like Poland, doing this. Because there is gaps, because they can't get British people to do it. So I get what John says, and there are certain jobs where you think, especially in broadcasting, where it's there's somebody from Sweden or somebody from Germany that's head of this. It's like, well, that job clearly would be better for a British person if you are head of the British news agenda or something. Yeah. But then, of course, it's a global outlook and all these things. But I wouldn't say necessarily that like for the NHS example, lots of people are employed from the EU and without that. But my argument with that is, for example, if I wanted to work in America, you would get an American company to employ you. You could go out there and work. So if we wanted people from the EU to work for the NHS, they could apply, they would get a work permit and it'd be fine. But it's the freedom of movement, I think, so people can just come here when they like, and they're entitled to the benefit system. And one thing the UK is probably too generous at is its benefit system. There are people that won't work because the benefit system is too good, and therefore and therefore people are saying, well, why should we work? And people that haven't been here that long, that haven't paid into the system, suddenly get benefits. Now I can understand that wholeheartedly.
Oh, thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate you. I'm not going to ask you who you're going to vote for. No, I won't ask you that. Just keep that in your mind. I really want to appreciate you for coming.
My pleasure.
Yeah, someone I really respect so much. Working with you is really amazing. I've learned lots of things, and some of the positives that we have actually discussed today is I just want the Nigerian government, the Nigerian system, to also be like that of the British, if not like that of the British. One thing that I want us to do is eradicate violence during our polls. Look at here in the UK, despite the fact that people have been voting since morning, they are still going about doing their normal business. People still went to work, people voted, no issues, nothing. You know, people would have these positive discussions. Like, you know, you said there are lots of hate speeches on the internet today. You know, people that don't even know you. I've seen people who have gotten jobs online by virtue of, you know, discussing with people because they were cool-headed, and people have lost beautiful opportunities because, you know, you don't know this person and you feel because you have an opinion, you have internet on your phone, and you can just insult people, which is not supposed to be. All right, so I believe one day we'll get it right, we'll do the right thing, and I hope to see in Nigeria where one day we'll be at the polling units, would drink tea, drink,
yeah, so British,
so British. I'm talking like a British like a British person now. So where we can just, you know, talk, have peaceful dialogues and
talk about the weather.
So a situation where nobody will lose their lives because of a politician or because of a political party. All right, this is Solomon's Diary. I'm sure you've enjoyed today's wonderful episode, which is, you know, discussing UK election and Brexit. All right, God bless you so much. See you next time. It is Oladimeji Peter Solomon, and don't forget to subscribe.